Opponents often argue that referendums would be a tyranny of the majority, harming minorities and reducing civil rights. How would you answer this concern?
Well, I think our experience in New Zealand over the last 15 years has been the tyranny of the minority, where a minority of a liberal elite in Wellington have been pushing their agenda through, which has been overwhelmingly against the will of the majority of New Zealanders. So I think referenda bring a balance into it. If there are issues about minorities and human rights, then those things can be introduced into the legislation so that on certain key issues, particularly if they're a breach of human rights or they're a major constitutional change, there can be some other safeguards put in place.
Well, I think that those opponents probably would benefit from opening a history book. History shows that the real tyranny is normally visited by despots, by dictators, by governments who gain totalitarian control. And if I look at the major civil rights movements around the world, what I see is that they began with the people. It was the politicians who were last to the cause. And I think that this is a very flawed argument, actually. I think history shows that people as a group are actually far more measured around these sorts of issues. It's people as a group who lobby for minority rights. And I think the history shows us very clearly you're much safer to put this sort of thing in the hands of the people rather than in the hands of a few.
But what about mob rule, Colin?
Well, again, I would say I don't believe that you've got any sort of substantial record in referenda anywhere in the world to show that mobs somehow are going to come in and dictate to some small hard done by minority. I mean, in a democracy, we do accept that the majority will have their say. That's what a democracy is. Essentially, it boils down to people having votes and deciding things through a discussion and through a forum where hopefully everyone engages intelligently. Now, I would argue that a public discussion is a far more intelligent debate than one held in the House of Representatives, usually under a lot of time pressure, and very often by people who haven't had time even to read the paperwork of what they're voting on. I think public discussions are very healthy, and I think that they actually temper those with very strong opinions in society because they're public discussions and it gives a chance for people to think clearly about things. I think if you look at the track record, the countries that have more referenda, that have more involvement of the people, have normally the best record in terms of how their people are treated, in terms of civil rights, and I think it's a stretch to say, look, the vast majority of people in society will do harm, but a small group of elite behind closed doors won't. Look, history shows every time it's the small group who have more power than they should who cause the problem. So I think this is a simple case of opening history books.
The Swiss experience shows that to be a fallacy as a statement. They have, in Switzerland, for example, voted down certain projects and put in and substitute other projects like greater expansion of educational spending, greater expansion of health spending. So a public that is experienced in this process can act extraordinarily responsibly. And it comes down to this, actually, if you don't trust the people, who do you trust?